Om. Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Saha Viryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shante Shante Shante. Vakratunda Mahakaya Suryakoti Samaprabha Nirvignam Kurume Deva Sarvakaryeshu Sarvada. Sarasvati Namastubhyam Varade Kamarupini Vidyarambham Karishyami Siddhir Bhavatu Me Sada. Samasta Janakalyane Niratam Karunamayam Namami Chinmayam Devam Satgurum Brahma Vidvaram Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangum Langhayate Girim Yat Kripatamaham Vande Paramananda Madhavam Paramananda Madhavam. Okay, wonderful. So let's read Bhagavad Gita. We'll read verses 14 to 17. We'll review a little bit and then we'll pick up from there. Okay? Annad bhavanti bhutani parjanyadanna sambhavaha yajñat bhavati parjanyaha yajñah karma samudbhavaha karma brahmodhavam vidhi brahmakshara samudbhavam tasmat sarvagatam brahma Nityam yagne pratishtitam evam pravartitam chakram nanuvartayati hayaha aghayurindriya ramaha mogham parthasya jivati yastvatmaratirev syat atmatriptascha manavaha Atmanyeva cha santushtaha tasya karyam na vidyate. So we're following the thought flow of Bhagavan Shri Krishna. And he says to Arjuna, he gives Arjuna so many reasons of why to perform Karma Yoga. He says, Arjuna, Karma Yoga will help you gain liberation. How? Karma Yoga purifies one for Jnana Yoga, prepares one for Jnana Yoga, and on attaining Jnana Yoga or knowledge, then one gains liberation. Lord Krishna says, listen, Arjuna, we were all created in the spirit of Yajna. Everybody was created in the spirit of Yajna. And therefore, it's out of sacrifice that we continue to act and also to pay it forward to those who have given us so much in this world. So it's our token of gratitude, and it's also acknowledging that the Creator has created us out of sacrifice. And he tells Arjuna, we are part of this cosmic wheel, this cosmic cycle. And therefore, to keep this cosmic cycle going, we also need to do Karma Yoga, or that Yagya Bhava, that spirit of sacrifice. Otherwise, we will be this block. So in verses 14 and 15, he shows this cosmic cycle, which we saw last week, but I'm just going to review it so that you can see, how everything is connecting. So the cosmic cycle starts from God. It starts from God, and God gives us knowledge. And with that knowledge, we learn what kind of actions we have to perform according to our swadharma, according to our inclination and our stage in life. And how do we perform those actions? In the spirit of sacrifice. And when we all do it together in spirit of sacrifice, what happens is rain, symbolized by prosperity. We all prosper. Not one person prospers, everybody prospers. I had told you in Mahabharata, right? To locate Yudhishthira, they had to find a really prosperous region. So wherever there is prosperity, know this, there is yajna. Yajna happens, surely there's going to be prosperity. There is no doubt about it. And when that prosperity happens, there's abundance. So when rain happens, there's food. Food grows everywhere. Abundance grows. People have accessibility to so many things, to nourishment, to security, to support. There's lots of abundance when there's prosperity, not just for one person, for everybody. And when this happens, of course, beings are nourished. Life is nourished. And of course, the purpose of all life is to go back to God, who is the giver of life. So this is the cosmic chain that we are part of. So whenever there is prosperity happening, somebody there, some group of people is performing yajna. And that is a fact. So look at all the most prosperous places, and this is what we will see. In the heart of them, there is yajna. And it is said also, if we want to feel God, you want to feel the presence of God every day, you don't need to do anything else. Feel God's presence in the spirit of yajna. When people come together, dedicated to a higher cause, sacrificing all of their selfishness and, just giving their all and accepting whatever comes as prasad. This is called the spirit of yajna. Yajna, karma yoga is the same thing. And so we saw last time, he says, don't be a block. If there's a block in knowledge, we know what happens. We never get to learn about what kind of actions to perform, how to lead our lives. If there's a block in action, everybody becomes lazy. Nobody does any action. Then we are cut off from any prosperity, abundance that will come because no action. But is action enough? No. If we do not perform selfless action, yajna, then we will be totally cut off from prosperity, abundance, nourishment, and God. So Lord Krishna says to Arjuna, we cannot be a block in this cosmic chain. And he makes it very clear. He says in verse number 16, Evam pravartitam chakram. In this way, there is this chakra, and it's moving all the time. And the one who doesn't follow it, the one who doesn't contribute to it, that person is leading a sinful life because they are just rejoicing in the senses. And they live their lives in vain. They live their lives in vain because they never make themselves purified enough to gain jnana yoga. So for all of these reasons, Lord Krishna says, Arjuna, that's why one must engage in karma yoga. Not only for Arjuna, for all of us. Then the question came, but is there anyone exempt from this cosmic chain? So in verses 17 and 18 is, who is exempt from this cosmic chain? And this is where we left off last time. Who's exempt? The one who is atmaratihi, the one who revels in the self. Atmatriptaha, the one who's satisfied in the self. And atmani eva santushtaha, the one who's content in the self. Tasya karyam navidyate. For this person, there's no more work to be done. They are exempt from this cosmic cycle. And but don't think that they're not giving just because they're exempt. Their whole life is a yajna. They might not be contributing how you and I would normally contribute, but their whole life is a yajna. How we say Puja Gurudev's every breath was a teaching. Every step that they've walked on this earth, whether they are walking, whether they are sitting, is a blessing. So Atmaratihi, reveling in the self. It means that they find their own joy in themselves. Atmaratihi means they're reveling in the selves because there's nothing else. There's nothing else apart from themselves. They are reveling in that one self. They are satisfied in the self. It means we saw nothing can increase or decrease their happiness. They're already full. They don't want any more. And Atma Santushtaha. They're reveling in the self. It never becomes stale. Sada. It has this bhava of sada. Always they are reveling in themselves. So now we will see verse 18. Can you elaborate? Arjuna was curious about this Atmaratihi, Atmatriptaha, Atmasantushtaha. And it's almost like he's asking, can you elaborate a little bit? Because I want to know if I'm there. Arjuna's thinking, I want to know if I'm there. So Lord Krishna says, let's see if Arjuna, you're really there. Let's see if we're really there. So he expounds on it a little bit further. Now let us go to verse 18. Naiva tasya kritenarthaha.
Naiva tasya kritenarthaha.
Na kriteneha kaschana.
Na kriteneha kaschana.
Na chasya sarvabhuteshu.
Na chasya sarvabhuteshu.
Kaschidarthavyapashrayah.
Kaschidarthavyapashrayah.
Naiva tasya kritenarthaha. Na kriteneha kaschana. Na chasya sarvabhuteshu. Kaschidarthavyapashrayah. So he says, for this person who is Atmaratihi, Atma Santushtaha, Atma Triptaha, Na eva tasya kritena artaha. Artaha here means prayojana or interest or goal. So tasya, of this person who is reveling in the self, satisfied in the self, content in the self, there is no interest. Artaha kritena, by action or in whatever action is to be done, akritena, or in an action that is not to be done. There is no interest whatsoever. Iha in this world, kashchana, any, means none whatsoever, no goal. Nacha asya sarva bhuteshu, and of this person in all beings, there is no artha vyapashrayaha. There is no dependence on any object or any person. So for this person, there is no interest whatsoever in what is done, what is not done, nor does this person depend on anything or anybody. This is someone who is really satisfied in the self. So what do you mean? This person has no goal or interest in life, no will or want to accomplish. So there is no such thing as that I have to do this, or I want to do this, or I want to gain this. There's only kartavyaha. There's only to do if there is praptavya, if there is to gain. We will only want to do something if we want to gain something. But for this person who is full, reveling in the self, there's nothing to gain. That they don't want any appreciation, recognition, wealth, health, nothing. There's nothing at all to gain. And so they have no prayojana whatsoever. We might say, well, don't they want to gain like a solid, safe life? Like, don't they want to live a safe life and be secure? No desire even for that. Don't they even want to have a peaceful ending? What if somebody wants to have a peaceful ending for their life? No desire for that. In Viveka Chudamani, it makes it very, very clear that somebody who has realized the self, it doesn't matter where their body drops. When it drops, where it drops, how it drops, it's just a body. It'll drop. There's no such thing. Do they even have a inquiry about, will I get food and how will I get food? No, nothing like that. There's no interest whatsoever. In autobiography of a yogi, there is Anandamayima, Paramahamsa Yogananda ji. He meets Anandamayima, and when he meets her, he's like so stunned by her because she's just godlike. She's completely godlike, and he felt that presence with her. And and he was talking to, she went into trance. She's the kind of person, she sits down, she goes into trance. So he was talking to her devotees, and he was asking about her. They said, we have to follow her because we don't know what she does. She doesn't even eat. We have to make her sit down. We have to make her eat. Otherwise she'll go somewhere, and we want to protect her. So we're always with her. We don't know what's going to happen, and we're sustaining her. She's just let everything go. And then, so he was just stunned at how she's just completely let everything go. And she has this conversation with Paramahamsa Yogananda, and she tells him, where are you going? And he says, I'm going to America. And he says, I'm sure in America, people will want to meet you as well. She says, okay, then you take me to America. And one of her devotees said, no, if she goes, 20 of us have to go with her. And then he looks at her, he says, maybe you come visit me in Ranchi. And so that's how she was, very like completely let everything go. So naiva tasya kritena artaha means absolutely no goal. So just imagine what this person is like. There is no goal to be achieved. There is nothing to accomplish. There is nothing to gain. There is nothing to want. This is who that person is. And na akritena, and they don't also feel bad that I didn't do this. For us, for the jiva rather, if there is an action not done, there's pratyavaya, the sin of if we did not do something, we omitted to do something, pratyavaya. So we were supposed to, let's say, wake up early and we didn't do it. Oh, pratyavaya dosha will come to us. Or if we were supposed to complete something today, but we didn't complete it, pratyavaya will come to us. But for this person, there is no such thing. There's nothing that they're not even affected by, oh, this is not done, I better do it. There's nothing to be done. There's nothing that's not done. And why? Because also the absence of the doers there. There is no doer. So, naiva tasya kritenartaha na kriteneha kaschana. There's no sense whatsoever of anything. Then there's no dependence on other people. So, our lives are so dependent. We're like, okay, if I achieve this and this, then I think I will be settled in life. I will be happy. Let's say if I pursue a certain system of education and I complete it, then I will be happy. Or if I get some promotion in my job, my company, I will be happy. Or if and when my children are settled, I'll be happy. There's this artha vyapashraya. We keep depending on other objects. So we actually set ourselves up to be sad. We're postponing our happiness. Don't be happy now, but when you get more money, then you be happy. Don't be happy now, but when your children are settled, then you be happy. That's what we do. We postpone our happiness. We put ourselves in sorrow. And then we say, okay, when this comes, then you have a right to be happy. Now, how ignorant is that? We are living in such ignorance. But this person has no such, if this happens, okay, I'll be happy. No such thing. No artha vyapashraya. there's this one verse I will read to you. It's from Uttara Gita. I'll read to you in Sanskrit and then I'll tell you in English. Jnanamritena triptasya kritakrityasya yoginaha nasti kinchit kartavyam asti chet nasa tattvavet. So it says, of the one who is content, who is satisfied by jnana, by knowledge, of that yogi who's reveling in the self, who's kritakritya, everything has been done, there is no more thing to do. If there is, that person is not the knower of the self. If one still feels that, oh, there's still something I have to achieve in life, there's still something I have to do, 2 more things on my bucket list, then I am done. Then, nasa tattvavita. This person is not a tattvavit, not the knower of the self. Now, it doesn't mean that this jnani will not act. We will see, jnani will act. But as Gurudev puts it very, very simply, that the jnani works from joy. So works, worships, serves from joy. But we do it for joy. We have always some kind of agenda. We have an agenda in life. So for those who have no agenda in life, they are exempt from the wheel, this cosmic cycle. So the question to ask then is, do we have an agenda? Now, there was this bachelor, and there was this auntie living in the neighborhood, and she was alone. She was alone. And her husband had passed away, her children live far away. And so she lived in a very big house. She inherited all the money. And so this young boy, he was, still in college, and he had this idea that he wants to make lots and lots of money. And so he saw that, this auntie, she has a very big house. And so maybe if I help her, maybe she leave me something. And so this auntie had a dog. And so he kept going to her house all the time to take care of the dog, because he wanted to show that he really cares for her. He wants to do things for her. And he wanted the money, that's what he wanted. But he said, I'll take care of your dog. I'll do everything for your dog. Then what happened? Auntie passed away. And of course, there was a will left. And so she left him something. But what did she leave him? The dog. She left him the dog. So this is what we do. We do all kinds of things because we want to get something. Very rare the people in this world who will do just to do. To love, just to love. To be, just to be. We always have some hidden agenda. Now, a little deeper look. Why is it that this jnani does not have an agenda? Why? Because, for the jnani, for someone who has this knowledge, who's realized the self, the world is not different from them. The world is not a separate existence from them. The world itself is them. The world is in them. The world is something that we know exists in pure consciousness, in pure awareness. Only when pure consciousness and awareness is there, then the whole world is there. And pure consciousness, of course, is always there. But in the light of awareness, then the world exists. So the jnani knows that it is my light, my consciousness, my awareness that lights up this whole world. And that this world actually has no separate existence from me. Everything that we see, we hear, we smell, we taste, all of it is actually existing in me. So why will I even want anything? Isn't it crazy? Will you ever say, I want my hand. My hand looks so nice. I want it. I want to keep my hand. No, You already have a hand. Will you say, oh, I want my shoulder. My shoulders are very, very cool, they're very broad. I want my shoulder. No, you already have it. So for the jnani, everything is already there. What is there to want? Who is to want? So if that person, any person, still has an agenda to accomplish, to gain, then get on the cycle. But if that person has no such agenda, then that person is exempt. And these verses 17 and 18, this is Jnana Yoga. So Arjuna now is thinking, what to do? Lord Krishna says, not here in the commentary, Lord Krishna says, Arjuna, you're not there yet. So Arjuna, don't think too much. You're not there yet. So for you, this is my advice. And now Lord Krishna goes back into the mode of Karma Yoga. So this is now verse 19. Tasmad asaktas satatam.
Tasmadasaktas satatam.
Karyam karma samachara.
Karyam karma samachara.
Asakto hyacharan karma.
Asakto hyacharan karma.
Paramapnoti purushaha.
Paramapnoti purushaha.
Tasmadasaktas satatam. Karyam karma samachara. Asakto hyacharan karma. Paramapnoti purushaha. So if you're reading or if you have Puja Gurudev's commentary, the connection, it's on top. Lord Krishna says, you have not attained the right knowledge, all pervading like the flood of waters. In Gita, verse 2.46. So there was this verse in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 2, verse 46, where it says, what use is there of a whole, of a little reservoir of water when you have a whole flood of water? And the person who has a whole flood of water is someone who's rooted in knowledge. So of what use is this reservoir if somebody has a whole flood of knowledge? So what Lord Krishna is trying to say, somebody who's already established in this knowledge does not need to go through this whole cycle, does not need to purify. Karma yoga has already served its purpose. However, Arjuna, tasmat, therefore, because you're not there yet, many of us also are not there yet. Tasmat, because we're not there yet. Asaktas satatam, without attachment. Asaktaha satatam, always. Karyam karma samachara, that action, karma, karyam, which should be done, samachara, please perform it. Asaktaha hi acharan karma, and performing karma without attachment, paramapnoti purushaha, one attains the supreme. So therefore, always perform actions which should be done without attachment. For by performing action without attachment, man attains the supreme. So here he says, now do your karma. So in a nutshell, we saw karma yoga is dip, right? Whatever action that has been given to you, how do you know it's given to you? According to our inclination and age, according to our role, certain responsibilities are given to us. Our nitya, our daily duties, and naimitika karma, daily and occasional duties. Perform that action in the spirit of dedicating to the higher, being an instrument of God, and accepting what we receive as prasad without any such attachment. Perform all action this way. Samachara means do this well. And when we do this, we will gain that purity of mind, and that purity of mind will then lead us to moksha, will lead us to that supreme. So now Lord Krishna made his case. He said, Arjuna, you asked me about the two paths, Sankhya Yoga and Karma Yoga. And yes, I did praise Sankhya Yoga, but I told you to do Karma Yoga. And now you know why. You know why? Because in Arjuna's mind, there was still an agenda, right? Arjuna said, Dharma sabudha chetaha. I'm confused about what I'm supposed to do. What is my dharma here? And for that state of mind, Lord Krishna says, therefore, perform this karma yoga and do it well. Now, Arjuna is thinking, now is Lord Krishna telling me to do this karma yoga as a guinea pig? You know, am I the first one to do this karma yoga? Or, I mean, have people done it before? Show me some case studies. You know, nowadays in life, we like to see case studies. We like to see, okay, where has it worked and how has it worked and for whom did it work? So Arjuna was also curious and said, okay, Bhagavan, now show me some proof. Show me some examples so that I can also be inspired to do the same. And so now Lord Krishna is giving Arjuna some very concrete examples that he can live by. Karmaneva hi samsiddhim.
कर्मणैव हि संसिद्धिम्
Astita janakadayah.
आस्थिता जनकादयः
Lokasangrahamevapi.
लोकसङ्ग्रहमेवापि
Sampashyan kartumarhasi.
सम्पश्यन् कर्तुमर्हसि
Karmaneva hi samsiddhim. Astita janakadayah. Lokasangrahamevapi. Sampashyan kartumarhasi. So he says here, karmana eva, by action only, he indeed samsiddhim astitaha, perfection. Samsiddhim, perfection is astita, is attained. Can you give me an example? Janakadayaha, by Janaka and the others. And lokasangraham eva api, and even for protection of the masses, sampashyan, having a view in this, kartum arhasi, you should perform this karma yoga. So now Lord Krishna is giving Arjuna more and more reasons. He says, this is the example for you. Janaka and the others attained perfection verily through action alone. And even with a view to protecting the masses, you should perform action. So Janaka, now who is Janaka? Janaka is a title given to the king of Mithila. So Janaka doesn't necessarily mean Sita Mata's father. It means whoever is the king of Mithila gets that title, Janaka. And why Lord Krishna is giving this example? Because Arjuna is in the same place. Arjuna is a prince and Janaka is a king. So Lord Krishna says that even these kings, how did they attain perfection? What is this perfection? Samsiddhi. This is also Naishkarmya. Naishkarmya means that knowledge of the self. They attained that knowledge of the self that led them to liberation. So they attain that perfection through this act of karma yoga. This just by, now karma yoga is, again, doesn't all necessarily mean that, okay, everybody has to go out and do social work and that's karma yoga. Karma yoga starts at home. It starts at home. Whatever is my dharma at home, that I need to do to perfection. And when we do that karma yoga, when there is that perfection in our dharma, we attain a very pure mind. See, Karma Yoga, it does so many things. One is it disciplines us, right? When we are steadfast in our dharma, there's very little room for indiscipline. We cannot do whatever we want at what time we want. We cannot go wherever we want to go just like that, because there are certain duties that we have to perform. And that karma yoga also lessens all of our likes and dislikes. We cannot think so independently that I want to do this or I don't want to do this. It lessens that. It teaches us also the spirit of sacrifice. It teaches us how to be sensitive to the needs of others, to see what they really want, what they really require, what they really need. It teaches us how to see God in people. And Karma Yoga also teaches us how to just focus on the act, forget about everything else, forget about what will happen, what won't happen, forget about the future, just to be extremely focused on what's being done. So it's a beautiful art, it's a beautiful way to live life. So he says sometimes it's hard, this knowledge of the self. It's not so easily one doesn't get so easily established in it. We may intellectually understand, I am Atma, I am the self, but to really get established in this, it needs a lot of these qualities, these discipline, being free from likes and dislikes, this sensitivity to people's needs, deep focus, deep purity. And so he says, this is the way that people have walked the path. They have gone through Karma Yoga, and that in turn led them to Jnana Yoga. And this is especially suitable for Arjuna's temperament because he was a Kshatriya. When we have to cook, what takes a lot of time? Buying the groceries, bringing them home, washing them, chopping them, putting them all together, preparing them. And then just cooking, it doesn't take so much time, especially if you have an instant pot, right? You just pop it in and it comes out in 10 minutes or so and it's done. So Karma Yoga is like the getting the groceries, washing it, chopping it, preparing it, doing all that stuff. And once all of that stuff is ready, Jnana Yoga really takes a moment. It's an instant. And one who has perfected themselves in this sadhana, it's not going to be hard to abide in Jnana Yoga. It will be very easy. So he says, by this Karma Yoga eva, by this act of Karma Yoga, of course Bhakti Yoga is there, Ashtanga Yoga is there, but this chapter is focusing on Karma Yoga. This perfection, samsiddhim, this moksha, this neshkaramya, this is astitaha, this is well attained. This means the seekers become so ripe that they merge into the sought right away. And he says, so do this Karma Yoga, because people also who walked in your line of thinking, like Janaka, this is what they did. And also, he says, Loka Sangraham Eva. Do it also for the welfare of the world. Sangraha, that word usually means collection. So Loka Sangraha, some people say, is a collection of people, but it's really to hold people together. Do it to hold people together, because after all, Arjuna, you're a prince, and it's your dharma. That it just so happened, Gurudev says it so beautifully. I'll read this line. He says, this is in my page 51. I'm not sure which book you have, but in verse 20, he says, a creeper will never grow in a desert. It is its nature. It is nature's law that every living creature finds itself in the most conducive outer world conditions. Thus viewed, because of the very fact that he had manifested himself as the son of his father in the family of kings, Nature had judged that the most conducive circumstances in life for Arjuna were the life of a prince, which is daring dangers, fighting enemies, and generally ordering peaceful and progressive growth for society. So it just so happened that Arjuna is in this particular place. He's in this particular role. And that's been ordered by his karma. So it's not something that he can fight, he can erase, he can give up. That's something that's been ordered by his karma. Just like for all of us, certain things are ordered by our prarabdha karma. And because of that, he has this responsibility to lead people, to keep them together, to hold them. So Lord Krishna says, Sampashyan, look at this well, see this well. And when you see this, that this is also part of the role that you have to play, then kartum arhasi, karma kartum arhasi. Then one should also perform action. So now Lord Krishna is really strongly making his case. He says, walk in the lines of Janaka. He says also for Loka Sangraha, to hold the people together, perform action. Now, Lord Krishna is going to give him another reason that he should also perform action. What is this reason? This is a very, very beautiful verse. Gurudev used to also love this verse. Let us read 21. Yadyadacharati shreshtaha.
Yadyadacharati shreshtaha.
Tattaddevetaro janaha.
Tattaddevetaro janaha.
Sayat pramanam kurute.
Sayat pramanam kurute.
Lokastad anuvartate.
Lokastattanuvartate.
Yadyadacharati shreshtaha. Tattaddevetaro janaha. Sayat pramanam kurute. Lokastad anuvartate. So Lord Krishna tells him, yat, whatever, acharati, whatever one does, who does shreshtaha, a great person, whatever a great person does, tat eva, that only, itaraha janaha, the other people also do. So whatever a great person does, the other people do. Sayat pramanam kurute. That standard, that pramana, that standard which they set, kurute, lokaha tat anuvartate. The people follow that. So whatever a great person does, then other people also imitate. Whatever standards they set up, the world will also follow. So now here, Lord Krishna is telling Arjuna, now whether you like it or not, you are Shreshtaha. You are a noble person that people look at. Arjuna is somebody that everybody looks at. You know, everyone, all the people admire his dexterity, his power, his prowess. Everybody admires him. He says, whatever it is, people are looking up to you. And everybody in this world, not only Arjuna, has that responsibility. We don't recognize it, but all of us are role models in some capacity or the other, whether we want to be or we don't want to be. For a child, their parents, especially when the children are young, their parents are their role models. They will look up to their parents for everything. So we find that the children like to dress up like their parents, you know, like daughters sometimes will wear their mother's high heel shoes and want to make their hair like their mother, or the sons also will want to dress up like their father, or, you know, do things like their father and mother. So when they're children, the children really, when they're very young, they really look up to their parents. They also love their teachers in school. They really admire them. And as they grow older, they look upon their siblings. They look at their siblings, and their siblings dress a certain way. They also want to, dress like their siblings or their cousins or whomever. So everybody is looking up to someone. Everyone is looking up to someone. And we don't have a responsibility just for ourselves. We have a responsibility for our dharma, but we also have a responsibility for other people. And sometimes we forget this. We think that our lives are only for us. So what? So what if we do something wrong? So what if we say something that shouldn't have been said? That's not okay. Because our mere presence, especially when we have children, when we have students, when we have people around us, that is a sample. That's a pramana. For the children, the parents are the pramana. Gurudev says so beautifully, he says, values are not taught, they're caught. So we generally don't learn so much by what we hear. We learn by what we experience with people. Many times, my learnings from Swamiji would have come just from spending time with him. And that's where we really learn, okay, this is how this is to be done. This is how that's to be done. It makes everything so clear because we actually see how the person lives. So we are not only responsible for a right way of living for ourselves, but also for others. Not that we want other people to look at us, but we never know who's looking at us. And if we have to be that standard, then we have to think twice about everything we do. So he says, Arjuna, you are that. You are that Shrestha. And whatever you do, people will follow. So imagine if Arjuna ran away from the battlefield. What would happen? We also, in turn, reading the Gita, would feel that whenever there's a big challenge coming our way, run, right? What happens if Arjuna said, okay, I'll take Bhiksha. I'll take the life of sannyas. I won't take up this battle. Then everybody, every grahastha who's somehow feeling that maybe I want to take sannyas would take sannyas. The world would be a crazy place, right? Or if Arjuna just surrendered to Duryodhana and said, take it, you win everything, I don't want anything, then we would never learn how to stand up for ourselves. So he's holding such a prime role for us that whatever he does, everybody's going to see and everyone's going to follow. He's going to set a standard. And therefore, he has to do that karma yoga. So that's with us too. That whatever we do, people are going to say, this is what they did. In Chinmaya Mission, we see how Puja Gurudev has set the standard. One standard that he's always set is time. He's very, very particular about time. If it's 6 o'clock, it's 6 o'clock. There was one time where it was almost time for the lecture to begin, like maybe let's say the lecture was going to be at 6:30 and it was almost 6:30 and Gurudev wasn't there yet. And everyone was like stunned. Where's Gurudev? Where's Gurudev? Where's Gurudev? Gurudev, he walks into the stage right at 6:30 and he starts his lecture. That's something that he held so high. So whenever we think about that, we're like, oh no, that's the pramana. That's the pramana, right? Or how he was very, very picky about cleanliness and keeping everything orderly. So it is said once where he went to Chennai and they were, he was going to do a talk in one of the temples. And so they cleaned the temple so well. They cleaned everything so well. And they were so excited for Gurudev to come. And what happened was Gurudev came. He was so impressed that everything was so nicely done. But when the priest was doing arati, in the arati thali, there was some black stuff there. And so Gurudev said, you have tamarind and you need to polish this. You need to polish where the diya is kept, where the arati is kept. And they all looked at each other. They said, we missed something. So observant, so alert to everything. And so when we see that, then we learn that that's how we have to be. Sometimes dharma is not so straightforward. To learn our dharma in life, we have the scriptures, which is one source. So the scriptures tell us, okay, this is where you are at in life. This is your dharma. One source is also social customs. The social customs of a certain place may be different from another place. So in New York City, let's say you can turn a right on red, but maybe in other places you can't. So we have to see, okay, what's the social custom in that certain place and time? Also, a way to determine dharma is self-awareness. We just become very cognizant and conscious. Don't do to other people what we wouldn't want them to do to us. But sometimes things are just not clear. Like sometimes it's so hard to figure out, what do I do at this point in time? What is my dharma at this point in time in this scenario? And that's where we bring Yad Yada Charati Shreshtaha. That's where we bring that Shreshta person, whoever it is, whoever that be, and think about, what did they do? How did they respond to that situation? And when we think about that, that gives us strength to respond a certain way because there's an actual sample. So it's not what or how leaders spoke or how leaders presented themselves or how leaders showed themselves to be, but it's really, really what they did. People don't learn from what we speak, but how we live. And we also learn from, they also learn from how we live, but not so much how we speak. Yad Yada Charati Shreshtaha. Just recently, something had happened, and so some kind of pain happened, and I was thinking, now how would a saint respond to this? And so I was thinking in my head of all the books that I read, and I remembered the incident of Sri Ramakrishna Paramahamsa, how people told him that, you have throat cancer and you can cure yourself, because he had so much tapasya, so much power. You have throat cancer, you can cure yourself. And he said, I cannot even think of my body. I cannot even think of my body. I can only think of Kali. And I refuse to spend even any thought thinking about that body. And then that just struck me. And I was like, wow. Yad Yada Charati Shreshtaha. That's the answer, So these are very, very precious things that we learn from others, and which, whether we like it or not, other people also will learn from us, especially when we have those children around us. So he says, you're going to be the pramana. You're going to be the pramana, Arjuna. So therefore, engage in karma yoga. Whenever parents ask me, how do we raise our children? I say, well, you raise yourself first. Raise yourself first. And then the raising children becomes very easy after that. Okay. So we'll stop with this first. I'll just review what we've done today and then we can close. Okay. Right. So today we just kind of reviewed verse number 17. Yastu atmariti reva syat. Who is exempt from this cosmic cycle is the one who's ever reveling in the self, ever satisfied in the self, content in the self. In fact, there's no other thing. but the self. So what else can you actually revel in? There's nothing else but the self. For this person, there's no work to be done. But really, why? And in verse 18, we learn because this person has no agenda. No agenda. There's no that I have to accomplish this or I have to do this. There's no burden of accomplishment. There's no burden of having to reach a certain goal, because one who realizes the self has already attained that which is actually ever attained. So there's no need to do that. And there's no such fear that, oh, what if I don't do this? What will happen? And there's nothing that's left to be done. Everything is already done. This person is ready to go. Ready to go. So there's no such interest, agenda in anything. Everything just happens for them. For this kind of person, then there is no need to be in this cosmic wheel, because also their life is a yajna. And there's no arata vyapashraya. There's no dependence on any object or any person for anything. If it comes, welcome. If it goes, it goes. They are free. Such a freeing way to live. Then Arjuna's wondering, okay, am I that person? Then Lord Krishna says, no. And therefore, Arjuna, for you, perform that karma yoga. And perform that karma yoga. And with that, the mind will be purified and one will attain knowledge and liberation. Is there someone else who's done that? Can you show me examples? Yes. In verse 20, we see even Janaka, kings used to do this, and they have attained that self through the process of karma yoga. They've gained that purity of mind through karma yoga, and therefore do the same as them. And that will help one be established so firmly in jnana yoga. And do it also loka sangraha, for the welfare of the world, of the people, because whether you like it or not, that's your responsibility. And then Lord Krishna further says, you also should do it, because whatever you do, people will follow. You are in that position where you are a role model, and what you said will be a pramana, will be a standard. And Lord Krishna is going to say something so beautiful in the next verse. He says, you know what, Arjuna? Even I act. I don't need to act. I have nothing to gain, nothing to lose, but even I still act. And so we'll see next week why Lord Krishna acts, even if he has nothing to gain. Okay? So I'll say the closing prayer, and then I'll make a few announcements, and then we'll do questions. Om. Om. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om.